Hey, welcome to X31 Topic 3 Pundits. I'm your host, John C. Dvorak. I'm here with Andrew Eisner and Joe Engo. And we're going to discuss the new Thunderbolt I/O that's available now on, I don't know, a couple motherboards, and I think Apple's bringing it out in some future.
It's already on MacBook Pros, but it's rumored to be on these new MacBook Airs, which is supposed to be launched, any day now. And it's on a new Sony Vaio Z, but I don't think
okay, so you have it on the MacBook Pro, and it hooks to what?
Exactly.
As of right now, there's only one
device. Very expensive
RAID
system.
One device?
Well, there's only one right now, but manufacturers are going to be rolling it out eventually. But it's right now, it's for RAID systems. I mean, that's where you're going to get the true performance.
Yeah, that sounds like a definite maybe to me. They're definitely maybe going to roll it out.
Is this essentially the next iteration of FireWire?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'm worried that USB 3 might kill it, but USB 3 is a lot slower.
I've got the chart here.
But even though USB 2, FireWire 800 is faster
look how
than
far
USB
we've come
2, but it
from-
never went anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, the cables were expensive, but nobody had.
Look how far we've come from
Well,
USB
Thunderbolt
2.
cables are way more expensive. They're $50 each.
The Thunderbolt cables are too expensive, but let's see. We got USB. But there's no why are they expensive?
There's a reason that they're $50 each. They actually have a chip on each side of the cable.
Transceiver, I think.
It's a transceiver.
Well,
not
what
a
it does is
cable.
it actually
Active circuitry
tunes.
in the cable. Do you believe that?
Does it have to be?
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
because you can't
10
get
gigabits
these
per
kind of
second?
speeds.
So it's basically
on
two
copper.
network devices talking to
Yes.
each other over an Ethernet
Exactly,
cable.
and then these chips are actually used.
So it's
to
basically a
tune the
router you hook to another router.
That's right. Wow.
Rather
Sort
than
of.
a
I
chip.
mean, it's more on the circuit level instead of the IP
Yeah,
level.
okay, but it's
Right.
pumping the, it's saying, okay, here we go, ready?
Yeah.
And it sends it down this cheap wire, and the other says, hey, wow, this is amazing. Let's see if this thing can talk to me.
But the interesting thing too is, Thunderbolt started out as LightPeak out of Intel, and it was actually supposed to be based on fiber optics. That's why they called it LightPeak. And
Right.
I don't know what happened to that.
Well, what happened is that the optical is too expensive for them to release right now, so they
Okay.
went with copper as a phase one, so to speak. Once optical gets cheap enough, then the same cable, the same slot can actually support
Okay,
optical.
that's cool.
Okay, now let's look at this chart you've got
Yeah.
here. Which this come from Retrievo?
Yeah, well.
Okay, here we
Could
go.
have.
So we got the USB 3, which is running at 5 gigabits per second, as opposed to eSATA, which is 3 gigabits per second, and the old FireWires.
So eSATA is slower. I mean, actually, I have an eSATA connector.
Yeah, I use
external
eSATA.
And they have an external eSATA connector.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
But it's slower than USB 3.
I have never found it. I don't have any. I don't think I have a motherboard. I had one. No, I do have one motherboard with a USB 3 connector. I've never tried it.
So here's the thing. I was just shopping for an external hard drive and decided that it was better to get a USB 3 enclosure, put a SATA drive in it, and get a USB 3 card for my desktop.
Well, I have a motherboard with USB on it, 3,
Yeah, well, that's
and
good.
I noticed at Costco, which is where I do all my shopping for my hard disks.
So-
Actually, I priced
price
them.
is too far
I
away, yeah.
priced them there anyway, and I've noticed that there was a new mini drive, the small drive from Western Digital. Excuse me, I think it was either half a terabyte or a terabyte little drive, USB 3.
Wow.
So I thought that was interesting.
And how much is that?
It was $110
Yeah.
or something like that. It was a little more expensive than the USB 2,
Yeah,
but
but still,
not
look
much.
at the speeds. I mean,
Now, okay, here's this chart. This chart's somewhat confusing because it says 10 gigabits per second. Is that per channel or
Yes.
5 per
That's-
channel?
No, no,
and this is the
two channels.
2 tens.
And both are 10.
You can
Yes.
go both ways. And that's one of the big
Can you go
differences
both ways
between-
on one cable?
Yes.
So wait a
Because
minute,
they
you're telling me
demonstrated-
one cable is 2 channels going back and forth, and you
Yes.
can do it at 10 each, so you're
Correct.
20 gigabits per
Total.
second on one cable.
Correct. They've actually shown a demonstration where they had a
I'd
RAID
like to
system
see
set
that.
up, and actually we showed the video of this.
Yeah, the
they
other
had a
thing
RAID
is-
system loading a series of Final Cut videos right off a RAID system, while they're also pumping the output to a monitor on the other side, going through that exact same cable. And they're only using like 40-50% of the total bandwidth of the cable.
So they weren't running at 20 gigabits.
They were not. They could have used more bandwidth. There was more bandwidth available.
be
They weren't
used.
even capping it out.
I wonder how many machines, because in the old rules were that, you could gigabit Ethernet, you can't get a gigabit out of a
Yeah, that's
modern
right. Yeah,
PC
the
because
bottleneck was,
the bottleneck
in
is
the
the,
I/O,
is
yeah.
the whole system,
Yeah, that's
basically.
right.
And the hard disk can only hit so much data. That's why you need a RAID to get parallel data to pump into this
DMA,
funnel and then shove it out of there, because you can't get, based on 72, even 10,000 RPM, you can't get the data to hit the head at 20 gigabits
Well, the
per
RAID
second.
system you can definitely, but yeah.
But is it ever going to show up in camcorders or places where you?
This is obviously for people who do a
Maybe
lot
not
of
directly on
video. This is a video editing
Yeah.
product.
Absolutely.
And isn't it ironic that Apple brings out the professional hardware,
Oh, this is a
but the
good point.
amateur software?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they bring out the 20 gigabits per second video editing
Yeah,
I/O,
then
and
give
then
you
they
this
bring
crappy Final
and then
Cut
they
Pro.
kill Final Cut with the Final Cut Pro.
Well, technically,
X.
this was
Yeah.
an Intel product. It was just Apple
Yeah.
was the first ones to
Right,
adopt it.
right.
But it's obviously for video guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the video guys got to
Yeah.
love this
Yeah.
because they
Oh,
got to move
absolutely.
these huge files.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
got to move them as fast as they can
Yeah, yeah.
because time is money.
That's right.
Time is money. You've been watching X3.